All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm incredibly excited about this conversation. My name is Cynthia. I'm part of the knowledge team at Transcend, and you're not going to hear a lot from me tonight because we're going to turn the conversation over to a group of young people who are joining us tonight. We're going to be moderated by Jahari, who is, I think, the youngest member of our Yellow Hats League at Transcend. And we're also joined by a group of 6 students who will be discussing their experiences with the topic of agency for us tonight. So, the call this evening is the second part of a 2-part series focused on the topic of student agency. A few weeks back, we were joined by a group of researchers and organizational leaders who are focused on the topic of student agency right now. They discussed the meaning of that concept and how best to develop student agency, and also discussed a little bit of how to assess agency as well. If you haven't had a chance to check out that webinar, it is available on our website. We definitely encourage you to take a look at it. So tonight, we're going to be continuing along those lines. And the primary purpose of this call is to really deepen our understanding as adults of how learners experience agency, the value of those experiences, the challenge they face acting as agents of their own learning, and of course, maybe most importantly, ways that we as adults can support them to take control over their learning. So the agenda will be as follows. You can see it on the right side of the screen here. We're going to start with some brief learner introductions and then some stories of agency where learners will just briefly touch on times when they've felt like they've had the experience of being agents versus maybe times they haven't. And then we'll go into a discussion for the bulk of our call. We'll have some high-level questions to ask, but that's where we're really going to welcome the Yellow Hat League members' own questions. You can put those in the chat window, and I will be monitoring those and sending them to Hari whenever possible so that he can field those questions out to the 6 learners that are joining us tonight. So without a further wait, I am going to turn it over now to Jahari Shelton to introduce himself and to get our call started.
So my name is Jahari Shelton, as you see. I'm 17 and I'm in a high school junior at Civil Friends in DC. I guess how I came into this work is through Transcend and a couple of other folks believing in me and what I can do and what I'm capable of. So just aside from Yellow Hats, I've worked with school designers to open charters here in DC. I'm on the National Youth with the Aspen Institute on social, emotional, and academic development, and just things of that nature. So I'm excited to talk to you all about, the agency within your own schools and communities today. So, so then if we can, we want to spend the next couple of minutes just everybody introducing themselves with your name, your age, and the most exciting thing that you're doing or learning right now. And probably also where you go to school too. That would probably be helpful.
Hello, my name is Nahira and I'm 16 years old. I'm on this call because our academics, we're able to choose, but we have a limit to what we are able to choose. So right now, as a junior, I take English 3, and it was either English 3 or AP. I only had those 2 options. I wasn't able to choose out of that boundary, and I believe we don't have that much
Hi, everyone. My name is Nate. I'm coming to everybody from Appomattox, Virginia. If you're a Civil War history buff, you might recognize the name. I go to a very rural public school. I'm a high school student. I'm a high school senior, and I'm 17 years old, trying to deal with getting into college right now. And how I'm connected with Yellow Hats is I'm a member of the Grip Tape Youth Advisory Board. And I think Mark Murphy, our founder, he had spoken on one of these panels a couple of weeks ago, and that's how I got connected.
Hello, my name is Alfina Camara. I'm from Delaware. I'm a senior at Mount Pleasant High School. And basically one of the most exciting things that I'm doing right now is we're very passionate about creating, teacher diversity in our state. So my peers and I have been working towards that and more of awareness campaign. So watch out for an op-ed coming soon, but that's basically what I'm doing. So yeah.
Hello, my name is Harrison Howard, and this is Jane Wedding. We're from Owensboro, Kentucky. I am 16, and how old are you?
17.
And we go to a school called the Owensboro Innovation Academy.
The most interesting thing I'm learning about right now is that one of my classes is called Genius Hour. So we get to create our own project about what we are passionate about in our own lives. So me and the help of my partner are making an app that we can hopefully publish out to the public when we finish it.
I'm Oswin, I'm 10 years old, and right now I'm homeschooling, so
All right, perfect. Okay, so let's jump into it. So, what we want to really address first is each participant's particular stories of agency, and how we want to define that is the inclination and ability to make choices that actively shape your own learning. So, what I'm going to ask you to do is share a bit about how you have or have not experienced agency. I think one of you actually brought it up, talking about your English course. But just talk about that in your educational experiences. Um, just talk about what that was like, and like a comparison, if you can, of experiencing agency and not experiencing agency.
I think a time that I experienced agency was during the summer when I was in a Sadie Nash program. And basically in this program, it was a women's program, and we were able to discuss anything of how we felt inside of the gender, about sexuality, identity, and about marriage, anything. And so it was like we had a choice. It wasn't just we was given a project and we had to explore that. We had a choice of, it was worldwide basically. We was able to do whatever we wanted.
Um, as far as my learner's story, um, I do come from a really traditional learning environment, but it's small enough to where you're able to interact with pretty much all of the teachers, and all of the administrators. So uh, I'm really involved with career and technical student organizations, including FBLA and Skills USA, for those of you who are familiar. And through those programs, I've been able to find learner-centered environments, I guess, that have sort of been created. And I've had to pioneer those within my own school. So being able to find an organization that fits my interests and explore based on technical guidelines, and learn that way, in sort of self-driven way, and really being given choice in all of that, and what I choose to learn. Now that doesn't really represent the organization that I'm coming to y'all from, and Alfina can definitely speak more to how grip tape can impact someone's life, from their learning challenge.
Yes, I am Alfina, and basically with my group tape project was when I experienced the most amount of agency in terms of what I was able to do. I decided that I wanted to create a homeless banquet where I would give surveys and realize what the problem of homelessness was and why it occurred. And through that, I was given complete autonomy, complete control of what I was able to do. And through that, I realized that I gained so much confidence because I realized that I was capable of so much more than our schools let on us to do. So places that I don't necessarily have that same control and agency is definitely school. Adults definitely try their best, but sometimes they can hinder our agency by always contrapting us and putting us in a box. So I can say school was a place that I didn't have agency, and I had agency in my group tape project.
Within our school, a lot of times we do get agency with our projects. Like the teachers frequently give us the end goal first, and they say, how do you want to get there? What do you need to get there? And Jane's going to talk to you about her Genius Hour class and how she experiences that.
My agency in my Genius Hour class, basically the whole class is agency, because she really tells you that it's not a study hall. She doesn't want you to just sit there. She wants you to really be working. but you're allowed to work on any project that you want, and you get to create your entirely own project and decide what you want to do with it.
And sometimes that we don't experience agency are kind of like in the math-based classes where it's kind of difficult to create a project that you can really flourish with and still hit those curriculums.
So right now, ever since I started homeschooling, which wasn't too long ago, I've started having a lot of agency by myself. So I'm doing Khan, Duolingo, and all those other e-learning websites. And so now I have control of what I'm doing. I set my own goals with the action journey tracker, and it's so much easier than the schools that I've come from.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what I heard from you guys is this dissension between how you experience agency in school, which from what I gather is usually where it's not happening, and in these outside of school activities like grip tape or like the conference that was talked about, you know, homeschooling and what opportunities that provides you from actually being in school building. So does anybody want to kind of talk about why they think that schools like that? If that's true of your experience, what do you think could be done differently that would kind of open that up for you?
Yeah, I'd be excited to speak on that. So in my experience, it's always been what sort of intrinsic motivation does the individual learner have, and then what sort of access are they given, right? Because anyone with means is able to pursue whatever they want to, but there are a lot of kids in my community. You know, I come from a really poor rural community, and a poor rural community isn't too much different than a poor urban community, because you're still dealing with levels of access. And in a public school environment, if you're not if you're not given the opportunity to do it, then you're never going to be able to. So where at Grip Tape, we've seen that if we're able to provide youth with a small amount of funding, right? We're giving young people $500 to pursue what they're passionate about, then that opens up a whole world of opportunity that young people just wouldn't have had the motivation or even the means to do it before that.
Yeah, like Nate, I also come from a traditional public school, and from what I've seen, we constantly are living in this industrialized system where we basically are just going through the motions. One kid goes there, we go to our next period, and we're not really allowing for any creativity to foster because we're so set on being on the same track of that kids need to follow this certain curriculum, and there's no leeway for us to really be creative. So I'm a big educational reformer, and I think that the best way for us to make sure that our kids are having the ability to have a sense of agency is about allowing programs like Grip Tape to allow to happen, where we give kids the freedom and the creativity to do as they please and not have so much adult input all the time. I think those are the best ways for us to foster a sense of agency.
I go to a charter school, and our school is kind of like you guys' public schools. We're given schedules, and we have like the same day. It's the same thing, and we have certain classes that we take is no different than like Monday. You'll take the same classes you take Tuesday, basically. And so I think a way that we could change that in my school is having more student-led groups, because in our school, since the teachers are already leading it, it's going to be the same curriculum. It's going to be the same ideas being passed. So I think that since students know what's going on and they know how it feels to have like, you don't have agency, then it will be different than a teacher being a leader.
While I do go to the Owensville Innovation Academy right now, which is a more independent, almost charter school, I started out high school at a traditional high school, and a traditional high school versus the school I go to now is very different. At a traditional high school, they pretty much give you worksheets and tell you this is the notes, copy them from your textbook, and just straightforward. But here, they give you the project that they're about to teach you about, and they ask you, what do you need to know about it? And then you conduct your own research rather than just be given what you need to know.
Okay, before the next person speaks, just so that we can start addressing some of the comments coming from the other folk on the call. So anybody can jump back in, or anybody who hasn't spoken yet can come in. So sticking with the question of like, why do you think school is that way? Why do you think that you only experience this sense of agency outside of school? Has there ever been a time when you were given too many choices so that it felt hard to practice agency? Specifically with what my love said just before this is that is when she transitioned from one school to the next, is that it was, like a new jump for her, right? And doing Genius Hour was different. So if you can talk about that, or the importance of having the resources that you need to practice agency, probably people from Grip Tape can talk about that. But I want to open the floor up with those questions as well.
In terms of the resources that I was able to gather based on Grip Tape is I think people don't realize that sometimes as kids we don't really need as much as people believe we do. The resources I got from Grip Tape was really allowed me to do my project as I wanted to do it. They gave me the funds, which was super important, but I can say that leaving Grip Tape, the fact that I had a champion who was talking to me about my project but wasn't telling me what to do but was just listening was super important. And the fact that I had complete control over my project, if it wasn't working out right, then I was allowed to, configure it the way I please. So I think the resource of allowing a kid to do as they want and just being there to be supportive but not hold their hand is super important to foster agency.
Well, personally, I don't think that I was given that many choices growing up, but I think that there should be a limit between the choices that you're given and a limit between the choices that you're given and like something being mandatory, so that there's a balance. Like, for example, in school, there's always choices that you're given and you get to pick, but they don't want to go outside of that, so that you're still learning academically what you have to learn, so that you're able to move up in grades and be able to graduate. So I think there should be a limit in choices that you get to make.
So to answer this question, I think we have to first define learning, right? Because and what goals that we're trying to get out of it. Because right now, defined since the early 1900s up until now, we've been told that to be a successful learner, you have to have competency in mathematics, competency in reading, competency in writing. And if you have those three things, in your career ready, right? Or, you can go out and be a productive member of the workforce. Well, studies are showing that that's changing. And so if we're going to give young people choice, then how do we create accountability systems? And I think that's what we've been touching on. And if they're given too much choice and it's overwhelming, then could that be part of the learning opportunity of learning soft skills of project management and time management and things like that? And I think that just all filters back into what is the overarching huge goal of education. Is it to create, assembly line workers, or is it to create people who can think independently and solve the problems that are going to be facing our generation in 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years? And that's the big conversation that needs to happen in education now.
Well, so for me, it's just a parent sitting at the other end of the table. And it feels good to have the support there, but not being controlled by that. And so because of that, I get to make my own decisions, but also if I have trouble with some of my decisions, then I easily have the guidance that I need to do that.
So let's talk about guidance and how guidance is helpful or would be helpful in your respective situations with school and agency, things like that.
I think some good guidance in school would be basically the teachers, like that's good guidance because the teachers already have knowledge based on what they're teaching you because they probably got that degree or they're good enough to teach you. So what you need to know in a specific area, I guess the teachers will be good guidance for the students.
I would say that in terms of the guidance again that I had in teen, I mean with grip tape was that I had no guidance in a sense. Like they allowed me to do what I wanted to do, and if I wanted someone to support me, they supported me by being there for me when I had an issue. But no one told me what to do, and that was the first time that I ever experienced no one telling me what to do. In schools all the time. Teachers mean well by telling you what they believe you should do, but sometimes they don't realize that that kind of impedes on independence and being able to think on your own. So I personally think that in our schools, not necessarily less guidance, but allowing to have projects or opportunities where we're able to have full control. And I remember when I learned the most was when I had a teacher who was willing to step back and allow me to learn instead of constantly being on me. So I think having a little less guidance in certain areas in school would be very helpful, but we still need guidance though.
I really agree with that because we're still kids. I am anyway, and I make mistakes all the time. And it's nice to have a hand there to say, hey, maybe try something else. Maybe this way would be better because they do have the experience over us. And I like what Oswin said, like we need a force there to be there, but not necessarily control us.
All right, so let's shift gears once again. Field another question in from the other people on the call. Has there ever been a time when you were given all the necessities, choice, guidance, resources, but you didn't feel ready to take control of your learning for some reason? And what do you think that reason was? Why?
I've watched my peers be given opportunities to do learning in different ways. But a lot of young people are just so stuck in the, what grade am I going to get on this? Is this an A, B, C, or D job? And how it's the accountability standpoint. How is this teacher going to objectify this project that I've been doing? And so it's not even I feel like this is too much responsibility. I don't want to do it. It's how am I going to be rewarded in the end if I do this amazingly creative thing and I show off all of my great talents, and then someone doesn't understand that, or the school system, if it isn't a traditional environment like what I've witnessed, how do I effectively express that to the person that's going to be grading it? So it's a fear of the grading process holds these people back from what I've seen.
Yeah, I can also agree with that. I've never really experienced this myself, but what I see in terms of my peers is just, I don't necessarily think it's an overwhelming factor, but I do believe that it's more so we're never really, agency is all about taking control and being able to take control of your learning. And really, we don't have an environment where really fosters learning to happen. So I think that if we were to allow our students to no longer think of learning as a grade or learning as something that is, monotonous. It's something that is fun. It's something that you can learn about, things that you're passionate about. I don't believe that agency would ever be overwhelming.
And to add on to that, Alfina, that was awesome. And one of Grip Tape's partner organizations, they had a young person speak, and they were talking about they were immersed into this learner-centered school, where all of the learning environments were completely learner-centered, and they were in this for about 6 months after coming from a traditional middle school. And so after about 6 months, they asked the facilitator of the environment, like, when does real school start? When do we get our teacher? When do we get our textbooks? And it's just that young people today are not used to being given full control and autonomy of what they're learning, and it's just not comfortable. And it takes a really long time to unpack someone from the monotonous environment of the assembly line education system.
Yeah, I feel that in order for a person to succeed in their adult life, they need to be exposed to the agency by themselves at a young age so that they can actually will know how to do it within their older ages.
When I was at the traditional high school, they just gave you all these worksheets and papers and said, here, do this, turn it in tomorrow. And you don't really learn any real life skills from that. They tell you what to do and exactly how and when to do it, and that's just the end of it. But with agency, you get more freedom and you can choose what you want to learn about and how you want to do it. Like last year we did, and what his project that he just closed on was a mock trial. And I was sitting in class and she said, we're going to do a mock trial. And I was like, whoa, no, we're not. And I got kind of nervous, but then she walked us through the steps and asked us what we needed to know. And she helped us out when we had a question, but then she gave us a helping hand, and it honestly wasn't as overwhelming once she elaborated on what she meant by that.
All right. So the next question is kind of about recognizing when you need help and articulating that. So do you remember how you learned to do that? How you learned to ask for help and advocate for yourself? Or what advice would you give other students who know they need the help but are having a hard time communicating that?
My motto in terms of that is the worst scenario is that someone can say no. So once you start to get that mindset, there's nothing that would ever really stop you. Once again, I can say that with my grip tape project, to make a homeless banquet, I had to get outside help. So I had to go and ask community members and things of that nature. And at first it was nerve wracking, but when you care about something and you know you have to get this done, then eventually you stop really caring about your pride and start really thinking about, I need to get this done, so I'm going to go out there and get that help. So I think that the best scenario is like, the worst thing that can happen is no. And if you're, the only thing is that the situation can get better. So that's how I see it.
A point where I learned to advocate for myself was in the beginning, well, towards the middle of this year, when something had happened at my school and I felt like it was unjust. So I had to advocate and stand up for myself as an African American female, because what was going on, it was with the principal, and it was out of hand. So I had to advocate for myself because there are other people that could have felt like targeted by what was going on but didn't say anything about it. So I had to advocate for myself so other people could see what I was doing and want to stand up against what was happening.
Just to add to that point, it was a great one. I believe that when you're an advocate, it becomes so much easier to advocate for others when you start to stop thinking about yourself and put yourself out there. And when you care about a cause that you find is beyond yourself, it's so much easier to advocate. So I also agree with that.
So the big question is, how can adults help you take ownership over your learning and drive your own learning experience agency? And all the things that we've been talking about. So what is the adult's role in all of this?
I think some support that adults could have is like school-wise, they could support us and like say we have a project. Like in my school, we have projects. Like, okay, there are projects that's programs. So basically it's a project and you get to choose what you want to do in the project. Like for me, I take studio arts because I like to draw. So I think when we are in the project that we choose, if we like in my project, so say if I draw something about the way I feel, if a teacher supports me or adult supports me, they will ask me like, oh, what does that mean? And talk to me about my drawing, not try to tell me what I can and cannot draw. Because in the project, you get to draw whatever you want. So I think that they support us when they allow us to step out of our comfort zone and do what we want instead of having boundaries for us and letting us, just having boundaries for us.
For me specifically, a lot of times when I'm taking on a task, I have trouble getting started. So sometimes I seek out the teacher and say, hey, do you have a suggestion? Like, how can I get started with this? And once I'm started, I can get it done. It's just sometimes I have trouble getting to that point. So I'll seek out a teacher or a facilitator, as we call them here, and they'll just help me with that.
I believe that educators should sometimes, again, just take a step back and allow a student to take control of what they want to do. Um, I mean, educators are there to educate us. They could propose an idea and allow a student to fully take control of it. They should allow students to take in part of their learning instead of just constantly telling them what to do and regurgitating what they have to learn. And I think it just don't underestimate students because we're capable beings and we are able to do great things. I think an educator's job is to unlock the powers within us and not to suppress them.
So to go back to the guide thing, it's that they're just there to guide you along the way as you to your adulthood, and it's just how you succeed. You need that adult to help you through all of your problems that you need.
So can you talk a little bit more about what you said about relationships and how they're important in getting to the standard of agency that we're talking about in schools, and how teachers should support students. Just talk about your point a little bit more and talk about how relationships are very important in this process.
So basically when I said relationship, I was basically thinking about, because in my school, it's like you don't build a lot of relationships with the teachers. I'm a junior now, and I built a relationship with 2 teachers. So I was able to like go to them when I was feeling bad about something, or I was able to go to them about how I was thinking. And so I think the relationship makes it easier for teachers to allow students to have their own agency because they're allowing them to have a choice to do something. So relationship is basically like, I would say, I would connect it to agency by saying relationships is a way to get agency. Because if you have a relationship with someone, then you will go to them about how you feel about something or having a choice about something. So if you don't have a relationship, you won't feel comfortable with someone to tell them how you feel or your choice.
I think that student, I guess you could say educator relationships are very important because once you take on these big projects or even just a single worksheet, if you get stuck and the teacher doesn't even hardly know anything about you, then they're just going to think that you're just slacking or not doing your work. But if they actually get to know you and what your moods are and how they change, then they'll know when you're stuck. So if you don't want to interrupt, then the teacher knows to slow down and clarify further.
By and large, the best teachers in the traditional classroom are the ones who are personable with the students respect the teacher respects the student. It's a two-way street. And those overwhelmingly show the best standardized test scores and the best grades. But how do we translate that? And of course, human interaction is all based on respect. And if we can translate that into learner-centered environments, then that's great. But and I think we can. But of course, the traditional environment, I guess, yeah. I mean, to support someone in filling out a worksheet or following along to a lecture is a lot different than supporting someone in doing something like the learning challenge, because it requires different things. Like with the learning challenge, we take a super hands-off approach. And each challenge we test a different independent variable. And sometimes in past challenges, we've had it to where the challenger has contact once every 2 weeks. Other times we've increased the frequency or increased the frequency to test where the sweet spot of the role of the adult really is. And of course that might change based on the individual. In a traditional K-12 environment, a huge part of K-12's entire purpose right now is free child care, so maintaining control in a classroom, especially in, a lot of the so-called dropout factories where there's violence and stuff in the classroom, then that's a huge role on where the adult plays. But I think it's all based on context, on what the adult needs to do, and the best educators are the ones that can sense that and determine and differentiate their teaching styles to each type of student, whether they're more or less intrinsically motivated or need more or less external motivation from the educator.
So, so I want to go through each participant on the call, and I want you to tell me, how do you think practicing agency now is going to help you later in life, and how is it going to help you achieve your goals?
Well, my career goal is to have my own business. So I think now me having agency, like in my school, will help because I'm obviously going to go to college and major in business. But I think if I have my own agency now in high school, I will be able to be prepared enough about business for college so that I could feel like I'm more prepared. So then when I want that to be my career, like when it becomes my career, it will be better than me going into college not having an idea about business and I'm not prepared. So I feel like if I have agency and they allow me to just pick a project, like pick any project, and I get to focusing on business, then that would help me in college so that I'll be more prepared before I go into college. And then that would help me later in my career.
I think that the best skill that these types of environments have prepared me for is learning how to learn. So it's like teach a man to fish, and he'll never be hungry a day in his life. So you learn how to learn effectively, and you learn about yourself and what helps you accomplish true competency in something. And that'll take you so many different places beyond people who are just taught to skim through a textbook and pass a test, right? So that helps you to pick up hard skills or soft skills, interacting with people, all of these things accomplished through more open walled learning environments and when the student's given choice.
I agree with that a lot because in the real world, it's not going to be that way. You're not going to have somebody sitting there handing you a textbook, you read through it, and then you take a test and that's it. You're going to have to do everything on your own, figure things out for yourself.
Agency in high school really gives you a great sense of responsibility and critical thinking, because if you have a problem, sure, you can ask the teacher for guidance, but you have to fix your own problems and to certain extents. And you have to take responsibility for your own work and not expect the teacher to spoon feed you and tell you every single thing that you need to know.
I can definitely say that acquiring a sense of agency has been so helpful to me even now. I now feel like as a young person that I can do whatever I please, like I could do whatever I want to do to make a change now and don't have to wait till I'm an adult. So having this sense of agency, it would definitely be beneficial with translating into my adult life, because I just believe that when you have a sense of agency, you feel like you could conquer anything. So we should not just be making sure adults have agency, but kids are having agency and can make change now instead of having to wait.
So I agree with what everybody said, and how living the regular life, there's not going to be really anybody to tell you exactly what to do and how to do it, when to do it, and all those things. You have to be, having the sense of agency allows you to know how to do that yourself before it actually causes any problems of not knowing that, so that you can fail when it's an appropriate time and there's not going to be really any consequences.
Okay, so I think that was everybody that went. So I want to thank you all for participating and taking this time to talk with us about agency, and hopefully it will translate into some good things. So Cynthia, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, and I want to thank you, Jahari, for taking ownership over this call. It was so luxurious to sit back and listen and field the amazing questions that were coming in. So thank you, Yellow Hat members, also for asking some really excellent questions. We're really excited to take this video and put it online and make it accessible to others, and also to keep on putting together resources on this really important topic. If you haven't had a chance to look at our adults researcher and organizational leader roundtable, definitely check it out. It builds on a lot of the same ideas you heard today. And so one final thank you for being on this late phone call. I know many of you are on the East Coast, so it's especially late and probably a little snowy for some of you. So yeah, thank you and have a great evening.